Hey everyone, and welcome back. We like to get into the nitty-gritty here on the deep dive, and today is no different.
Definitely not.
We're going deep on economic forecasting, and we're going to unpack some excerpts from, get this, Is a Recession Coming? What is waiting for us in 2025?
I like that title. Straight to the point.
Right, no beating around the bush. And by the end of this deep dive with us, well, you'll have a much clearer picture of what the experts are predicting for 2025.
The crystal ball's a little foggy, though.
Yeah, well, predictions, right. But still, food for thought for all of us, right?
Yeah,
About how this might impact our own decisions in the coming years.
absolutely. Yeah.
So I got to say, this piece doesn't pull any punches.
Oh, is it controversial?
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah.
It throws out this question about a 2025 recession, but it doesn't give you a straight yes or no.
Which, to be fair, is kind of realistic, right?
Exactly. It's like, come on, if anyone could predict the future of the economy that easily, we'd all be rich, right?
Yeah, no kidding.
But anyway, it goes deep on a bunch of factors that could swing the economy one way or the other, and some of them are things you don't see every day.
Like what? Give me an example.
Okay, so one thing that jumped out at me was all this talk about a potential housing market bubble.
Oh, yeah, that's been in the news a lot lately.
For sure. We got these record high home prices in so many places. It's kind of insane.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, from an expert's perspective, how could this bubble, actually bursting, trigger a recession?
It's all about chain reactions, really. Imagine this. Housing prices go way up, then suddenly, bam, they drop.
Ouch.
Right. Homeowners suddenly feel less wealthy. So what do? They cut back on spending.
Makes sense. Belts tighten.
Exactly. And then construction slows down, which leads to job losses.
Domino effect.
Right. And on top of that, the banks, the ones holding all those mortgages, they might face some serious losses. And then credit tightens up even more. It can spiral out of control pretty quickly.
Wow. Yeah, I see how that could snowball.
Mm.
And then you throw in all the geopolitical uncertainty we've got going on right now.
Oh, yeah. Can't forget about that.
Right. The source article specifically mentions, rising tensions in mentioned specific region from source.
Yeah, that's definitely a wild card.
That's not something you typically see in those, classic economic models, right?
No, not really. And
Yeah.
that's actually what makes trying to predict the economic future right now so tricky and, well, kind of fascinating, too.
Totally. It's like a whole other layer of complexity, right?
Exactly. Geopolitical instability can mess with everything. Supply chains, energy prices, investor confidence. It's a huge factor.
Okay, so we've talked about some pretty intense stuff, but it's not all doom and gloom, right?
Actually not.
The article also points out a few potential bright spots. One that I was really intrigued by was this idea that, increased automation could actually lead to higher productivity.
Interesting.
I know, right? Because usually you think of automation, and you're like, oh no, robots are taking our jobs.
Yeah, that's the common narrative.
But this piece is saying it could actually help the economy. So I'm curious, how could that work?
Well, it is kind of a paradox. You're right. While it's true that automation can displace certain jobs, it can also lead to the creation of entirely new industries and jobs that we can't even imagine yet.
Okay, interesting.
And increased productivity can potentially lower costs, which means goods and services become more affordable. And in theory, that could boost overall economic output.
So it's not just this, apocalyptic scenario of robots taking over and we're all out of work.
Nope, not necessarily. It's about adaptation. How can we as a society harness these technological advancements to create new opportunities?
I like that. Opportunity. And speaking of opportunities, the source article also talks about, the potential of renewable energy investments.
Oh, yeah, the green energy revolution.
Exactly. I was kind of wondering if they touch on that. So how does that factor into the 2025 economic picture, you think?
Well, the argument in the article is that this shift towards renewable energy could be a huge economic driver. They mention the potential for massive job creation in sectors like solar, wind, battery tech,
Yeah.
all that.
Wow, that's actually pretty optimistic, isn't it?
Uh.
It sounds like even if things get rough, there's potential for some serious growth here.
Yeah, I think that's a key takeaway here. Even if some of those negative factors we talked about, like the housing bubble or geopolitical stuff, even if those things happen, there are also these powerful forces kind of pushing back in the other direction.
A real economic tug of war.
Exactly.
So, okay, we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about recession triggers, housing bubbles, global risks. but also some potential bright spots like automation and green energy.
It's a mixed bag for sure.
It is. So for you listening out there, as you think about like your own financial planning for the next few years, how might all of this influence your decisions?
That's a great question. And I think the most important thing is to stay informed. Like, be aware of these trends we're talking about and consider how they might intersect with your own personal circumstances and goals. Because, this article doesn't give a definitive answer about a 2025 recession, but it does give us a lot to think about as we navigate all this uncertainty. So, for you listening, what specific economic indicators or trends will you be watching?
I love that question. Really makes you think, huh? And that's what we love to do here on the Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely.
Remember, staying informed is like the best tool we have. Until next time.